Welcome to the Divorce Podcast, where we explore relationships, divorce, separation, and parenting apart. This episode is part of our new mini-series where we answer your questions and share practical bite-sized tips. I'm your host, Kate Daly, a relationship counsellor, divorce specialist, and co-founder of Amicable, the online legal service for separating couples. In this mini episode, I'll be sharing tips on what to do if your children don't want to meet your new partner. From choosing the right timing to keeping conversations age appropriate to pacing introductions gently, I'll cover some practical tips that'll help make this transition easier on everyone. So first of all, the most important thing in all of this is to keep minded of your own children's perspective. Children often struggle with divided loyalties, and they may feel that meeting a new partner means betraying the other parent. So it's really important to try and alleviate them of that pressure and stress. And that really speaks to your own relationship with your ex-partner and how you can make that transition from parents to co-parents as smooth as possible. So if you've laid the foundation work well, then it'll make meeting new partners more straightforward and more seamless. But let's be honest, it's not always the case that you've had the opportunity to lay that sort of groundwork very well at all. So if you're coming from that perspective, you might just need to invest a little bit more time and patience with your ex-partner and your kids when thinking about introducing a new person. Younger children sometimes feel quite confused with new people in their lives. They're not difficult with them because younger kids are usually quite compliant. But you might see it in other ways where they're not really sure kind of who's who and what's happening and who's taking care of them. So with younger children, it's really important to explain what will and won't be happening at the time it's about to happen. So not too far in advance. So not saying, oh, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to introduce somebody to you. It's my special friend. Nothing like that, but just doing it much nearer the time. So younger children don't have the opportunity to build up the anxiety. It's kind of different with older children because they're going to be more conscious of how their place in the family might be changing. And they might have more questions about what kind of role this person's going to play in their lives, or they might say things like, is this going to be replacing mum or replacing dad? And they often use that replacement word as well. So don't get caught out by that, but just expect it. It's really normal, and it's nothing that you've done or said to set it up wrongly. It's just typically how slightly older children react. I think the key with all of this, well, there's two keys. One is really good comms with the other parent, which I'll come on to. But the other one is really about timing. Now, we all know what it's like when we're in a new relationship, and particularly if we're excited about it and we think this is going to go somewhere. But rushing the introduction just because we're excited about it or we think this is kind of a good relationship can be really tricky for kids. So I think there's some questions to ask yourself. You don't want to be introducing children to every sort of new partner, girlfriend, boyfriend that you ever have. So I always think that kind of, is this a long-term, stable and serious enough relationship for it to matter to my children and to impact their world, is kind of a good place to start. Because if you're not sure or you've got your own doubts, and that's normal at the beginning of a relationship, then the advice would be to steer clear of doing any introductions at this point in time. It just undermines future introductions that you might want to do that might be more serious or more long-term. So if you do think it's a long-term, stable relationship and it is someone that's going to be in your life for a while, then that's the point at which you can start to take some steps towards introducing children and partners. But you really do need to do some groundwork before doing that with the kids. And also, this brings me on to the next point, the comms with your ex-partner. So your co-parent or your ex-partner doesn't have the right to veto you introducing a new partner to your children, but doing it without their kind of knowledge and without them sort of being involved in that can make it very difficult indeed. And it will undermine your relationship with your new partner because your ex potentially, if it hasn't been handled well, won't support that relationship and won't support your children's relationship with your new partner. And if possible, for the children's sake, you need everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. So really, that conversation with your ex needs to come first. You're not asking for permission. You're giving them a heads up about what you're going to do and what you intend to do. But if you do that in a respectful way and a way that gives them the opportunity to express how they feel, that will be much more beneficial to you in the future. So let your co-parent know. This will prevent any surprises. It will help them be prepped. It will keep everybody on the same page, and it will help your children, most importantly, to feel that you are a co-parenting team and that mum and dad, are both on the same page about this. Now, you might not want the timing, or you might not like the timing that your ex is preparing to do, but just remember, you don't have the right to veto. So if you're thinking about, making things awkward and difficult, that's only going to harm the children ultimately. So I think explaining to children in advance of meeting a new partner, not in a very heavy way, but just in a way that allows them to ask any questions and gives them some reassurance about your relationship, is usually a really positive thing to do. So keep the conversation as light as you can. It doesn't have to be, like I say, a big kind of in-depth, no, I need to sit down and talk to you about something that's very important to me. Nothing like that. If you've got younger children, it's best to introduce your new partner as your new friend. That keeps it nice and simple for them. They can't yet work out when they're very little what the different titles and roles are. So they just need to know it's someone that's important to you and someone that's going to be nice and kind to them. So keeping that very simple for the younger children. But for older kids, you are going to get asked more questions and you will need to explain in more detail why this person is important, why you're introducing them now, that kind of stuff. So making the language age appropriate and encouraging children to share any worries or to ask any questions is really important. But the real key when explaining all of this to your kids is to make sure that they totally understand that your relationship with them is your priority and that isn't changing. And just because somebody new is coming into your life, it isn't dividing or removing some of the love that you have for them. So I think I always explain to kids that love isn't like a piece of pie that you have to divide up. It's something that is amazing. It just gets bigger and bigger the more people that are involved in it. So I think explaining it's somebody else who's going to be important in your life and somebody else who is there to help and support you and ultimately to love you is a nicer way of doing it. I think as well with kids, it's about the pacing. So, you can try and have that introductory first meeting where it's usually better if it's kept quite short. It's very casual. If you can do it, and obviously this depends on your setup, but I always like the idea of your kind of new partner coming to pick you up from the house when the kids are there. So maybe you're going out somewhere together, you've got a babysitter, your new partner drops in to say hello, and then you go off and have the time with your partner. Just something small and simple, just so they can literally get that first meeting over with. And then you can build up slowly. So you don't introduce them by kind of moving them straight in or having a whole big long day out with them, but just doing a quick coffee or a small bite-sized chunk so you can just get that first initial meeting over with, and then it can be a more relaxed thing that you do next time. Sometimes when you're dealing in blended families, it might be easier to do something with the new partner on their own first before introducing new children or anything like that. But just build up so that your new partner starts to have a relationship with your kids independently of anything else at first. I think keeping it light and not pressurizing or forcing your kids to really like your new partner is really key as well, because the more you push hard for them to like and accept this person, the more difficult it can be for them to really genuinely form a relationship and do that. And you know what kids are like. If you say one thing, they'll automatically want to do the other. So I think keeping it casual, keeping it light, making sure that they're clear that this is someone who's important to you, but not pressuring them by saying, oh, you'll love them, they'll love you, or you'll love them if you just give them a chance. And, I think trying not to get into that sort of vernacular and that language of, if you do this, you'll see that they're great and they're good and all of that kind of thing. I think that's tricky. I think a better tack to take is really validating their feelings. So, just acknowledging that they might find it hard, or there might be some characteristics that they don't like about your partner. That's okay too. Nobody, likes absolutely everything about an individual. So I think trying not to jump to the defense all the time and just trying to keep the language neutral and open and validate how they feel, rather than trying to question them or be angry with them if they don't like something. I think that anything where you're forcing and pushing too hard, it usually tends to backfire. I think the other thing as well is, I'm sure you can remember when we were all a lot younger and we would first sort of go out with somebody new and we'd almost ditch our friends, wouldn't we, to be with this person and all the rest of it. And I think there's always a slight danger and a temptation of doing that, particularly when you're, second time around and keen to get on with things. So I think really being present for your children and letting them know that you're really present for them, even when you've got a new relationship, that can be super important too. So keeping your parent role steady, reliable, trying not to change your usual routine around at first to accommodate a new partner, but showing your kids that your routine with them comes first, that they're important to you, that you respect those routines and those timings. I think that's very important. So, children need to know that even if your romantic life changes, that your parenting won't. And you can reassure them that their needs and routines come first. And I think that helps tremendously to make a long-term relationship much more sustainable. So I hope those tips were useful. If you've got questions or comments, or you've done it a different way and it's worked brilliantly, then I'm all ears and I'd love to hear about it. So please do let me know. If you found this episode interesting or insightful, then definitely please like and share on your favorite listening platforms. Don't forget, you can find me on LinkedIn to make any comments about the podcast. You can find us on thedivorcepodcast.com or your favorite listening platforms. And of course, we do love hearing all of your comments and questions. So please let us know on hello@amicable.co.uk if there are topics that you're particularly interested in, or you've got something you want to say about this topic. Thanks ever so much for listening. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time on The Divorce Podcast.